Hey friends. So, I've had a recognition show up recently about the kind of energy that I bring to much of my life. And I for lack of a better word, I might call it a kind of intensity. Talked a little bit about this yesterday in my post. But there's I was talking with Katie last night, and I was having this sense of craving play, craving a feeling of play, of being playful. And this is something that I've definitely reflected on this before, and I've identified my own intensity before. And by intensity, I kind of mean like a way of being focused and not necessarily outcome driven. It's not necessarily that I'm always like focused on something for where it's going. I think I've developed a pretty decent capacity to sort of be both in the process right here now. Is this something that if you really want to learn this, take piano lessons, because there's a kind of there's just a requirement to be really present with this moment, all the possible details of this moment, and at the same time an arc of going. Music is always going somewhere. Music is not one static chord here now. There's always a trajectory. And so there's a real an elegant balance between the present moment awareness and the movement, the journey. But as an energy form, what I'm identifying in myself, and what I think I'm kind of like, I'm looking for ways of opening this up, is just a kind of seriousness. And on one level, I do trust myself to know how to find joy in my life. That's not something that I feel like I can't do, or that I have a particular. I don't feel like I have a problematic resistance to levity or to lightness or to play. But I just notice a kind of general, it's like pressure. And even in my practices, my yoga practice, qigong practice, meditation practice, piano practice, I think I've loaded up my plate with enough things that it starts to feel like, okay, now I'm really having to manage these beautiful pieces. It's like they're beautiful balls to be juggling, but there's a kind of, it's like it's almost like this thing where you presume something has weight and it actually doesn't. it's like if you hold on to, it's like you're holding onto a box, and I think it's full of books, but it's actually full of cotton candy or something like that. But my muscles are accustomed to holding, so the box actually feels heavy because of the way that my muscles are accustomed to holding on to it. And that's actually an interesting image, because it's something that I think in a lot of aspects of life, there's a way of discovering that the reality we're facing, what we're actually engaging with in this moment, is not reality. There's no such thing. It's our pattern is giving us a reflection in the cosmos. And so much of what we experience is what we're bringing. I mean, this is like kind of like, it's like inner work 101. Everything's a mirror. But so as I witness in myself this energetic tendency towards maybe a kind of seriousness and intensity, I was just looking at, well, how can I lighten? And the truth is, the practices that I have in my life really are part of that lightening. My morning physical routine, yoga and qigong, lightens me for the day. It lightens my physical body for the day. Meditation lightens my mind for the day. So and yet, in sort of arranging my life to be able to do everything, that's where the heaviness creeps in, and it becomes a kind of, it's like I add weight. And I'm wondering, it's funny, I literally looked up from this post and I happened to glance at a book on my bookshelf. It's Effortless Mastery by Kenny Werner, who's an amazing jazz pianist and a spectacular music pedagogue. But effortless mastery, it's the effortlessness that makes it feel like play. And I think, this is where it gets really dicey, because effortlessness in that sense is not letting go. It's not a letting go of our intention or our focus. In fact, it's almost, our focus and our intention cut through the non-playfulness. It's almost like that's the job of those kind of deep buddhi based, like the buddhi being the part of the psyche that chooses, the choosing faculty. That's the part of us that can cut through the patterns and find light, which is inherently playful. And I think so. This is an interesting recognition for me to kind of be thinking through for myself, because there's a tendency when I feel like, oh, I'm not being very playful, or I don't feel very playful, there's a tendency to want to put down a lot of the practices and the kind of rigorousness. It's the rigor. The rigor starts to feel heavy. And when that happens, there's a tendency to want to put it down and not be so rigorous. And I actually think maybe that's not the way to go. I had the experience recently of spending some time away from the piano, both because logistically I was I was really, there was a whole kind of series of episodes where I was didn't have a whole lot of time. But even more than that, there was a kind of internal resistance to it, and I had this sense of, no, I don't want to do that right now. And I don't usually let that go very long, but I found myself kind of indulging it and getting it, week 2, 3 in, and at some point I realized, but what is it I'm really resisting? It's not the practice. It's whatever I'm facing in the practice. It's whatever is the resistance to the play in the practice. So that just takes me to a whole other place where, rather than saying these practices are heavy, the rigorousness is too heavy, and putting them down and then eventually coming back to them and just simply having to pick them all back up again, what if there's a way of leaning into them, really leaning into those practices and saying, there's weight here right now in the way that I'm practicing that I don't need to be carrying. This box is not full of books. It's full of clouds. I know that. Can I experience that? And then allowing the way that I practice to be oriented towards that discovery, the discovery of that truth that I know is the case. I already know that's how it feels when I'm in that space of total alignment. But what's the weight? Because it's just, and it really is like, to find play, how do we find, the older I get and the more of this work I do, the more I realize there's really no such thing as just throwing up my hands and saying, to hell with it, I just want to have an easier life. That's not how it works. There's no such thing as ease without intention and without rigor. I just don't see it anywhere. So, but at the same time, I'm not incorrectly identifying this energy of, I'm very serious about having fun, So yeah, that's where I am in my journey right now. I'm looking for I'm looking to stay engaged in the things that are bringing me that bring me into connection and bring me into alignment, bring me into lightness, but consciously orient within them in a way that acknowledges that where I can also feel, hey, this is heavy, and I don't have to pretend like it's not. I can say, this is heavy. What do I need to be carrying it? Is it part of the practice, or is it something that I've stuffed in my pocket and now it's uncomfortable to do the practice because I got this giant thing in my pocket weighting me down? Can I take that out? Can it go away? Or is it something that I need to take and make so central to the practice and align so powerfully behind that it is no longer heavy? It's like, how do you become a better weightlifter? You pick up heavier and heavier things, and little by little, the things that used to be heavy don't feel so heavy anymore. Well, maybe that's part of it too. Finding the things that I'm carrying this. And I'm carrying it. It's like it's a thing in my backpack that I don't even know is there. Why is that so heavy? Man, it's like a laptop. You ever carried like a laptop from like 10 years ago? But finding a way to, if I'm carrying this weight, how do I want to carry this weight? Where should it sit on my spine? Where should it sit on my back? What does my posture want to be? How do I want to be walking? How do I use my legs? How do I use my arms? Where does my head sit and my shoulders? as I carry this weight. Instead of just being like, oh, it's heavy. I don't want to carry it. Because maybe I do. Maybe I do. Or maybe I don't. Kind of depends. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks. All the love in the world. Appreciate you greatly. Have a wonderful day. I will see you tomorrow.